video or not. And that's why we find ourselves so frustrated. And we look at the woman that we're here for today. Sandy was so steeped in the Black Lives Matter movement. She cared about black lives. She cared about all lives, but she cared about black lives. And there's no reason that we should feel uncomfortable about saying that we care about our community, just like others care about theirs. We know for a certainty that there are issues of race. We've got situations all throughout this city, unfortunately, where you have people and officers that go and respond to circumstances and they feel like they're in the wrong neighborhood. And as a consequence, their actions end up being different than what they would be if they were in the right neighborhood.
Thank you.
Can we get all the names?
Yes, sure.
Sure.
Let's start with Ken.
Geneva Reed Veal,
Can you spell it too?
GENEVA REED VEAL.
Hyphenated?
It is.
Hyphenated?
Yes.
Sir?
Larry Rogers Jr. That's Larry. Rogers ROGERS. And Jr.
Commissioner.
Co-counsel.
Sharon Cooper, SHARON.
Skinny, we'd appreciate it. No, whatever. Here, you want it behind her? Okay.
Audio check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Okay. Are we on auto, Iris? Thank you. A, B. Anybody else? We good? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Good? Thank you.
How are you? Good. Good. I'm doing fine. Did you enjoy your Hawaiian vacation?
I did actually.
I hope you did. If you didn't, I'd worry. I'd have to take your temperature.
The other two guys got well, yeah, the other two guys
Got each other.
happens. Well, especially they were in the vans every
Yeah,
day for a
you
month.
were in the van. You did that too.
I had 4 days off, but they didn't have any days off.
Who didn't have any days off?
And I read it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I felt a little bad.
Fortunately for you and me, I own a tiny violin, and I play it for them.
Oh no, yeah, they weren't put off by it. I just felt a little awkward having days off. Yeah, Roy just didn't want me to get too much overtime. And
It's weird that that's the reason, but yes.
well, it's not work.
We don't want to do too much. Because, you know, you're a walking money bag.
You are. I was like 4 days off in Hawaii. Emily was with me the whole time.
Oh, yeah. They didn't. Yeah.
No. We did that on Miles, and then we paid a little extra when we got there. She was only gonna stay the first week. And we got there. The first week, I was supposed to get 2 days with the freelancer. On the second day, Emily and I are standing at a rental car. And phone goes off. And he's not a problem. He's really well. Some of the people out there. And it's the guy that we've been with for years. Call me. Proper. He says, I got a sick kid. I have to go. I need my wife to the hospital. I need you to come this weekend. No problem. So luckily, we had like gone out on the island for the day. And so Emily drives me over to the school this thing, sweep in, and later I get a text from him saying, everything's well now. We have a child who's been sick since birth. He's literally on the wall of fame at the children's hospital here. But when we went in to wake him up this morning, there was blood everywhere, and we couldn't Jesus. Yeah. So no problem. So I didn't even know if I'd get any more days off. And Emily was there, and I said, why don't you stay longer? We haven't had enough time together. It doesn't look like I was worried that the trip might get shortened for back home. Didn't look like that was going to happen. I said, why don't we figure out how much we'd have to pay for you to stay longer? The hotel room's free. So she stayed the extra week. She was a little reluctant. She was like, well, my family's expecting me at New Year's, and that's for her. That's
I
a
understand.
big deal.
Sure.
I volunteer. I said, look, I'll call your mother. She said, no, that won't help. And she called her family and said, look, I think I'm done. So they said, of course. Yes, you have a free hotel room in Hawaii. Take it. And so I joked and said, well, haha, if your grandmother dies, now you're going to feel bad if you stayed an extra week at Paradise. And her grandmother's not an in-law. So we get home on Sunday, and Sunday evening, get a message from her dad. Your grandmother's not feeling well, we're going to the hospital. Right?
You know your wife, if she hasn't already said this to you,
Yes.
should just say, shut up.
Everyone should.
Just
I should be like that dog in the neighborhood that
you
everybody
clearly
got
have a
together.
power,
Right.
and you need to care. With great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly. So, but by midnight, they're like, oh, she's just dehydrated, we're getting admitted, no problem. Thank goodness. Because we know that her grandmother's not young, right? She's like 90. Right. And she's had declining health over the years, but
She's 90, you said?
yeah. Right. And so she's really slowed down a lot. Right? So like midnight, no problem, getting her admitted, just can't get her fluids out. 4 a.m. call. Your grandmother's taking a turn. Not gonna make it.
Well, it's just dehydration.
Yes. Well, when they admitted her, like an event happened when they started hydrating her, like her heart gave out or something gave out. So this is 4 a.m. Monday morning. I immediately.
Where is her grandmother?
In
Alabama?
Augusta. With a rest for all the family. So immediately I'm like, you need to go. And so I didn't even like get out the computer. I got out the kayak app on the phone and bought her and like so like an hour later I'm getting ready to take her to adults. Like we're going to the airport now. And her dad calls and says grandmother. So I'm the biggest. So
But at least she was not in Hawaii.
I didn't bring it up. I wasn't gonna.
I read it again.
You know, no one could have foreseen this, and I had a great time staying on in Hawaii.
At least she was in stateside, on this side of the
Yeah.
ocean, so that she could get home.
Yeah, she got to spend. She had spent like 2 days. She's coming back for one day. She got to spend time with her. It's never just and my grandmother's. All 3 of her children were there.
Something similar. Went to Texas. You have your family there for Christmas. New Year.
Morning.
Terry went home while we were in Texas. I needed to get over to my grandmother. And something happened schedule, but all the kids went, got visited with them. All my kids, so we're great.
Sorry, didn't mean to cast aspersions, but you're right.
The cameras are already set up, whatever. Go back home about 2 weeks later. I missed seeing her, but the kids got to see her.
Good.
But yeah, it's like you're. But no.
Exactly.
Previous to that, 10 years we lived in Washington, and 15 years I lived elsewhere. Somebody got that camera just got and she has dementia, so she can go along. So even if I went to see her, you remember,
Yeah. Oh, I'll never feel awful that Emily. I'll never suffer awful. A little bit.
5
Just that one more conversation. Say bye.
well, not that she would have even said goodbye then, because.
Well, right. Yeah. No. Exactly.
You got a cigarette lighter on the side.
No, that's not.
Oh, the cigarette lighter.
With no work. Don't cook for Thanksgiving.
Cigarette lighter.
He gave me a big old hug.
Oh.
Rubbed his nose
Our
on.
shit. South Carolina.
Did you see Iowa today? It's covered in snow.
Yeah.
No, they're splitting us up. So Carlos is Iowa and Kevin is New Hampshire.
Kevin is New Hampshire. So Brian, I have one of those things like a bite. Gives me poison and kills me. Ouch. No. I don't know who was on Yeah.
Stop you right there.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Right. It's a big state. Big enough.
No, it's tiny states. There are a lot of candidates, and our team is huge. Yeah. The chances of us having had Labor Day.
I'm trying to outwit my.
I'm gonna need to start.
Sure that the great,
I'm sure.
the great sledding insurrection of 2015. It was in the omnibus, that's right.
Yeah.
Second primary is until 27.
You can slow it.
Well, I think I.
No, that was the policy.
Welcome to 2016. We would have been slugs.
For 3 weeks.
I thought that was a new move they're trying to do. You have shooting while you catch the NFL.
Knowing full well that's a bad thing. Did you get the book?
This town.
Right, right. Right, right.
You see, but if we put up in the park, why did you put the chair right? Because that was down right here. And that's what they.
Yeah.
Don't try to lie. Well, the problem is when some of these groups or something. You can sit right here.
Steve, just put the chair right.
I think I walk right there. It's pretty mild. Oh, you lost it?
I'll never see it. I'm never gonna see 2012. Not gonna see it. I'm gonna know, right?
I don't drive around South Carolina.
Yeah.
But I was also
Play Maryland.
Although distances are not as long, and it's a good audio.
There you go. Yeah.
Before I go.
Well, from north to south, it's a pretty long state, isn't it? Get through the mountains takes a while, or what? Relative.
Yes, and that's the thing with that. There are no highways.
Right.
It's all bypass.
Yeah.
It's a lot now. And you can just go through tons of people come in.
So, yes, yes.
But that's why we have.
And, we sold off the first check of the second.
Oh, yeah. Got that
Other economic development, four planters,
Darren, Austin. Yeah, so yeah, we've got a variety. Matt who? Kavanaugh?
well, they
Followed
have
her
that.
on Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
She posts all these pictures like.
Oh, no. What do you get now? Now I need to know where to handle it.
Because the clerk.
You got me there.
You get how many minutes? You get to do your hand there. 5 minutes?
1 more.
You can do that now.
Uno minuto.
Close enough for government work.
As long as I get better pictures than Scotty, I'll be happy.
So you can put them on Scotty channel?
That'll be good.
Like 30 more seconds.
Sold the property.
Good morning to some of you. Welcome back. Some of you we've seen earlier in the week, one issue or another. Hope you had a restorative and enjoyable holiday. First, as we come back, it was very moving and historic, really, to see the president opening the new year with strong common sense executive actions to address the epidemic of gun violence in America. As you all know, Americans overwhelmingly support action to reduce daily tragedy of gun violence in our communities. The President has clear authority to toughen the application and enforcement of existing laws to save lives, and again, no substitute for some additional congressional action, which we're asking for a vote for. It's necessary because 30,000 Americans are being killed by guns each year. Many more, and probably 3 times that goes to 100,000 gun injuries. Tomorrow marks the 5-year anniversary of our own, since our own colleague Gabby Giffords and 18 others were shot outside a supermarket in Tucson. It was really a joy to see Gabby there 5 years later, 5 years that she has devoted to reducing gun violence in our country, she and her husband, Mark. With all of that and the families that were gathered there and the hope that the President instilled in them and the path that he provided to reduce gun violence in our country, it was really almost sad to see Speaker Ryan and congressional Republicans said the President's action dismisses actions to reduce gun violence as a distraction. Speaker said what the President did was a distraction. I wish he could have been there at the White House because it wasn't a distraction for the families of children who were there. The families were there of children killed at Sandy Hook in Newtown. It wasn't there. It isn't a distraction for the Pinckney family who were there, Reverend Pinckney's family from South Carolina. It wasn't a distraction for the many other families who were there. In fact, it was their central focus. And the President's actions gave them hope, gave them something to mobilize around. As they say, enough is enough, and we will not stop until the job is done. We want a vote in Congress on the bipartisan Peter King, Mike Thompson legislation to close loopholes. Now, 20 years ago, when we first passed the Brady bill, how many of you were shopping on the internet? Well, many of you weren't even shopping, but how many of us were shopping on the internet? Now, 20 years later, many people are shopping on the internet, and some people are buying guns there, and that loophole needs to be closed. Republican Congress even refuses to keep guns out of the hands of suspects on the FBI's terrorist watch list. Later today, Republicans will vote for the 10th time to block action to close the loophole that allows suspected terrorists to buy guns in the U.S. You can be on the FBI terrorist watch list, go into a store, and 90% of the time leave with the gun of your choice. That's a loophole that should be closed. The Republicans refuse to do so. We must build on what the President did and pass the King-Thompson bipartisan legislation. I truly believe that it would pass the House if the Speaker gave us the opportunity to vote on it. Meanwhile, instead, as we discussed yesterday, some of us, for their first act of 2016, Republicans decided to renew their attack on women's health. With yesterday's reconciliation bill, Republicans once again tried to take family planning and life-saving preventive care away from millions of American women. It is the House GOP's 11th vote to attack women's health in the 114th Congress. In 2013 alone, Planned Parenthood, last time we have all of the measure of it, Planned Parenthood's 669 centers saw more than 2.6 million patients, more than 370,000, giving more than 370,000 Pap tests, more than 450,000 breast exams. This Republican bill to defund Planned Parenthood is an insult to the intelligence and judgment of women. It's a waste of time and taxpayer dollars. The President will veto the bill. Democrats will sustain the President's veto. Hardworking Americans would have hoped that the first act that the Republican Congress would put forth, first legislation that would put forth would be something about job creation, about growth, about good paying jobs for the American people, not grandstanding on women's most intimate decisions. Republicans their New Year's resolution would be to quit their anti-women health obsession for the new year. In global matters, as you know, North Korea has reported in fact, they've reported a hydrogen test this week, and that's deeply concerning. While the initial analysis that North Korea has overstated the nature of the test, but these reckless actions threaten the security of the region and the world. This irresponsible act by North Korea violates long-standing UN Security Council resolutions on nuclear weapons activities. Those resolutions include ballistic missiles and other initiatives, but speaking specifically to this, it's in violation of the UN resolution. We understand the Republican leadership plans to move a bill strengthening U.S. sanctions on North Korea that will have strong bipartisan support. My understanding is it may even be brought up under suspension as early as next week. Democrats in the committee will support the legislation, and it has been in the works for a while. This just did not materialize since Monday night's test, but it is ready to go, and we will support it. Any questions? No? Chad, are you Chad's person here? Is he going to ask about the Bengals or something like that? I talked about the Warriors then, didn't I? Okay, what do you got?
That said, I know you're always optimistic about electoral prospects for your party to win next year. There's one school of thought out there that Donald Trump would be the nominee, that it drastically increases chances, but some people say that is still a hard match. What do you think is specific to the Trump scenario?
So you want to talk politics right here under the dome of the Capitol? From time to time, as a small percentage of our meeting, after we've discussed policy and why the election is important. Yes, I'm confident about, in this presidential year, the clear contrast between Democrats and Republicans, the message of trickle down, which the Republicans espouse, tax breaks for the wealthy and special interest, and perhaps it will trickle down, or growing out from the middle. Recognize we're a consumer economy, grow our economy in that way. I think that that contrast is a stark one, and the American people will identify with our democratic initiatives under that framework. We have great candidates. The optimism that I have springs from the enthusiasm of people who are stepping forward to run. So we have the candidates. We have, under Mr. Clyburn's leadership, a mobilization, an outreach to register and reconnect with people as to why it's important that they vote, and the leadership of our chairman, Mr. Lujan, who is 24/7, is an understatement of the time he puts in and the high regard with which he is held by our colleagues. So we had a very successful year in terms of mobilization, messaging, and money, the 3 M's.
How much does it make a difference if Trump is the nominee?
So if I say we want Trump, then that means we think that enhances our prospects, so that might reduce his support. I don't really get involved in the Republican nomination for president. You know that. I barely get involved in the Democratic nomination for president. But whoever they choose, we will be ready to make the contrast, because it's not just about personalities, although that counts in a presidential. It's about policy, and it's about how American people identify with someone who identifies with their aspirations, who understands them, who knows them. And so I wish them well in their process, whoever they nominate. We feel very confident that we will be able to defeat, and to do so in a way that lifts many more members into the House and the Senate and state legislatures across the country.
Curious for your perspective, is the Canadian-born Senator Ted Cruz, you think, eligible to be president? John McCain said he didn't know today. I'm curious for your perspective.
He said he didn't know?
Yeah.
Well, again, this is inside baseball, to use one of Chad's always sports analogies, inside baseball. of the Republican Party. It's up to them to decide. I do think there is a distinction between John McCain being born to a family and serving our country in Panama than someone born in another country. But again, this is a constitutional issue that will either be decided or not, but in a constitutional way. My opinion means nothing here. I didn't pay any attention to it. I'm more concerned about the fact that the Republicans in Congress think that trying to stop gun violence in our country is a distraction, that their first legislative act is to defund Planned Parenthood. That's really what my focus is, not where Ted Cruz was born.
We're talking politics. Progressive groups are some calling for Debbie Wasserman Schultz to step down as the head of the DNC. She's been in open battles with one of your Democratic members. Does she still have your confidence?
Yes.
Can you elaborate? Why does she have your confidence?
Well, I don't share the concerns that others have put forth. I have been vocal in saying I thought we should have had more debates. That isn't about her leadership. It's just about a decision that was made by those who make those decisions. But Debbie Wasserman Schultz is a very valued member of the House of Representatives from the standpoint of policy. She knows her issues. She came here as an experienced legislator from the Florida legislature. She has all the stamina and enthusiasm for the job that she has. And I believe she has the confidence of the president and will of the nominee of our party. And that's where these decisions are made.
Now the DNC is being sued by one of your presidential candidates. Do you think she's in good?
I'm not aware of that. I'm not aware of a lawsuit. I'm sorry. I'm just not paying that much attention to that aspect of it. Yeah. Yes, sir.
China's currency devaluation is
Right.
rattling financial markets. The customs bill that passed the House, do you think that would address this adequately? And is that about the most Congress will do in this Congress?
I don't support the customs bill. I think that it started out as a reasonable place that we could support, but when they added other initiatives, you know what the story is of the customs bill. The customs bill is where terrible amendments to the Trade Promotion Act, the fast track, where terrible amendments to that went to hide. They didn't put these amendments on the fast track bill because they knew they'd lose Democratic votes. You know, totally ignoring climate change and its relationship to commerce, lowering the threshold in trafficking as human trafficking as related to Malaysia, issues that relate to currency that were not adequately addressed in the customs bill. So what they did was put some terrible stuff in the customs bill to attract Republican votes for the fast track without losing Democratic votes there. So this is their path to TPP. I don't know if it has any relevance to what is happening in China in terms of the underlying causes of the market there going down and its relationship to our customs bill. But I would hope that the solution is on firmer ground than the customs bill, which had strong Republican support, and the president was supposed to sign, but now they injected another element, which is extending the moratorium on internet taxation into the bill, so that's complicated matters as well. I'm hoping we'll get to the Chavez bill, which is bipartisan, sponsored by a Republican chairman that we all support, for marketplace fairness. It has different names: Internet Fairness Act, or Marketplace, Main Street Fairness Act, but something that's fair to the states and cities. Yes, sir. I'm reading it now. I'm trying to study it very carefully. I've made clear to the members that I vote on fast track, which I do not believe that Congress should relinquish its authority to any president, Democratic or Republican. That's a prerogative that is, I think, important for the Congress. So that's one vote. What the substance of TPP is another vote, and that requires our study of it. And Mr. Levin, our ranking member on Ways and Means, is having a series of meetings on it, and you might be happy to know that at one of our meetings, Mr. Levin said that he was having one. It could be today, or yeah, I think it's today, on currency, and that it would be sizzling. Mr. Levin and his sizzling meetings. It would be interesting to see. But that meant that they had representatives on both sides of the issue in terms of currency, maybe more than two sides. And that's what was happening today. So members are studying and learning more, and we'll see. But a great deal of it depends on when the Republican majority will bring up the bill. And as you've seen, what I see reported in the press, I don't know if it's a fact, but it is a fact that it is reported in the press that Senator McConnell said it would probably not come up until September, if then. Yes, sir.
Over the weekend, there
Come
was
back.
a series of arrests of illegal immigrants, including a number of families who had arrived a year and a half ago as part of that migrant surge. The cases have been adjudicated, and they're deemed ineligible for asylum or any number of other relief agendas that you got. They're now in detention centers that you have asked to be closed, and they're in line for deportation. Do you think that they should be deported?
I thank you for your question, because this is a very serious challenge that we have. The mothers and children, and it's overwhelmingly who we're talking about here, they are the subjects of these proceedings, are desperately trying to escape violence in their home countries. In the processing the asylum claims of these women, children, and others fleeing horrific, really horrific violence in Central America, the Department of Homeland Security, I think the Department of Homeland Security must ensure that no person is wrongfully deported to face certain persecution of mortal danger, and that's what's happening there. The adjudication process has to recognize that not all of these people that you have discussed have had full access to effective counsel during all stages of the process. Now, as refugees, they really do not have, as an American citizen might have, the right to counsel. But we do have to try to make sure that there's some evenness when they try. But, for example, we must address barriers to access to attorneys, clear explanations of what's happening in their native language, largely Spanish, about their rights in the process, especially their right to appeal, and especially considering that, as I said, these individuals are not entitled to court-appointed attorneys. So I think that we have to study every case separately. I think that we want to obey our laws, but we also want to, in obeying our laws, make sure that the process is fair to people. And I think in some of those, at least 4, they have had a stay. So as they look more closely at it. We'll be meeting, we've been having some meetings on the subject. We'll be having another meeting and briefing today. But it's a bigger issue. I mean, the situation in Central America is horrific. There is really, mortal danger is not an exaggeration of what some of these people will experience when they go home. If you're going to be killed or you try to come to the U.S., the choice is a clear one. On the other hand, we don't want a message to go out that this is a process that is almost automatic. You come, you stay. No, you have to prove your case. And we also have to say this is a regional issue. There are other countries that could be helpful in absorbing some of the people who have this well-founded fear of persecution and mortal danger in their countries.
But they have been through a process. Does that mean you don't have confidence in the process that's in place?
Well, I think in our own, really, access to attorneys makes a big difference as to whether you are going to succeed or not. I think the numbers are very clear. If you have a good qualified attorney in this kind of law, you have a better chance, just like any other legal but if you have really no chance, you have language barriers, you don't understand the process, you're probably not going to be able to make an effective case. Again, we want to obey our laws, but we also want to implement them fairly. And we'll be having some conversations with the administration to that effect, some of them today. Yes, last question, because we got to give up the room. Yes. Well, Congress has refused to act. I mean, how many more years does Congress have to refuse to act? Again, I hope that you all saw what happened. This was historic. This was transformative. This was something great. The President of the United States using his authority to make people safer in our country, which is our first responsibility, to protect the American people. And I know the Republicans have a line about this. It's a distraction. No, it's a focus. It's an important focus, and it's an embarrassment to the world that America has the gun violence that it has, because we have laws which have been proven to be effective, but that we will not extend to the internet or gun shows and that, and the hobby, people who collect guns, collectors and people who collect guns as a hobby. If you want me to go into the specifics, I will. But I think that it's never been easy. So to say it makes it harder to pass the bill is compared to what? We have not had a chance to have that vote on the floor while we've wasted time over 60 times to overturn the Affordable Care Act, 11 times to defund Planned Parenthood, how many times more to, the list goes on and on. But this is a debate the American people wonder about with Congress. Wonder why our numbers are so low? This is about something that affects them very directly, not only in the high-profile incidences of tragedy, but what happens every night on the streets of in communities across our country. Yes, he has a very good bill. I hope he's not walking away from it, but he did say it makes it harder. Perhaps it does. But hopefully it will make it easier for the American people to understand why we don't have a vote. And as the president said, the NRA can try to hold the Congress hostage, but they're not going to hold the country hostage. And when it comes to the safety of the American people. Listen, let's go back, and we really have to give up the room because the speaker's coming any minute. Look at the case on immigration. Ronald Reagan, George Herbert Walker Bush, George W. Bush, to name a few, but I'm just naming 3 Republicans now, but even going back to President Eisenhower, Gerald Ford, and beyond. All of these presidents have taken action in terms of immigration in our country. Ronald Reagan, after Congress acted in 1986, after Congress acted with the Immigration Act of 1986, he said Congress did not go far enough. I'm going further to protect families. So he instituted the family fairness provision, which he and President George Herbert Walker Bush implemented with a higher percentage of an impact than anything that President Obama has done. So these court cases, shall they be retroactive? Should they apply to President Reagan and President Bush when it comes to immigration? It's litigation, the courts, just really a waste of time. I believe that the president did what he did on Tuesday with full knowledge as a constitutional scholar himself of what the possibilities were, and is on very strong ground as we go forward. What does it do? To enforce the laws that are on the books in a more effective way. And I had some of the law enforcement people who were at the ceremony, one in particular from Baltimore, whom I have a friendship with, tell me how pleased he was and how helpful what the president was going to do, was going to be to law enforcement. Thank you all very much.
I know.
You're welcome. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Caleb, good. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. House Radio TV, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
I don't know how the fuck we got so lucky.
Yeah, I know. Gracie was like, oh yeah. This is what